I remember posting a lecture that I did at the University of Johannesburg, and I was discussing with the students Dr. 𝐌𝐿𝐻𝐜. What's your take about who's this doctor that's trending on Twitter? Dr. 𝐌𝐿𝐻𝐜. What's your take? Who knows about Dr. 𝐌𝐿𝐻𝐜? Okay, what's your take? The famous TikTok doctor. And a lot of the things that came out is that people wouldn't trust him just based on his persona, based on how he behaves on social media, based on the way he dressed. And it was never about his work per se, what he does in the field, what he's achieved, and how patients actually know him, how the Department of Health actually accepts him, and everything else. That video, I must say, for my small channel was quite impactful. More than 8,000 people and counting are actually watching the video. And the reason it's and counting, it's because of this Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜 situation. It was on 8,000 plus views for the longest of times. But because of this Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜 situation, in the past week, it has garnered more views. And so one comment that was on that video was that people were paying attention to how Dr. 𝐌𝐿𝐻𝐜 actually looked, how he presented himself, and weren't focused on whether he was a qualified doctor or not, and whether he was providing service that meets the Batubili principles. Now comes Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜. Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜 is well dressed, he has his own pharmaceutical product, he's famous on TikTok, he answers people's questions, people take his advice. There could be the placebo effect, whereby when giving the advice and actually supporting it with data from Google or other platforms that actually give or serve as a source of information, then people may come back and actually be healed by the placebo effect. But another important thing to discuss is that people weren't even suspicious of him. People were not suspicious of him. And I'm not here to discuss the whole Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜 saga in detail. What I'm here to discuss is the can of worms that is actually opened. Because a lot of bogus doctors will now be exposed. And through those bogus doctors being exposed, South Africa will be a better place. So thank you, Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜, for being the type of person who takes yourself out there, who chases clout and wants to be recognized for accolades that you don't actually deserve. I'm in the environmental health sector. Environmental health is one of those professions that are part of the professional board within the Health Professions Council of South Africa, so the HPCSA. And the HPCSA is governed by legislation and act, which says that every single profession within the health sector needs to be registered with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Every single professional that is practicing, even at student level, has to be registered in a particular category within the Health Professions Council of South Africa. So whenever you go to a doctor and you're not sure whether this person is who they say they are, then the best thing for you to do is to go back to the Health Professions Council of South Africa, go to their website, and there's a tab where you can check their registration number against practitioners that are actually registered. But it's important to put this disclaimer. I'm not a representative of the HPCSA. I'm just a professional within the environmental health sector. And given the fact that I've gone through that process, I think it's important to highlight it from an environmental health perspective, but also coincided with the medical and dental profession, because, as I said, they have 12 boards. And there's pharmacy there, there's nursing there, there's medical and dentistry there, there's environmental health, there's biomedical technology, and many others. So where does this thing all start? Firstly, you enter a tertiary institution. With Dr. 𝐷𝐷𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐜, it was made clear that his claims were false. he said he studied at this institution and that institution, but there's no record of him. So that's clear, and it's an easy disqualifier. But people, because of social media, can go as far as Dr. Matthews himself. So you first need to enter a university establishment. That university establishment will have minimum requirements that you need to meet with your grade 12 results. After meeting those minimum requirements, then you need to register as a student with the Health Professions Council of South Africa. Now, each board, each profession will have its own requirements. For example, within environmental health, you need to have a portfolio of evidence spanning the duration of your qualification in your studies. One of the things that serves part of that portfolio of evidence would be 100 days of practical training within public institutions, private institutions that are within your industry and sector. So with environmental health, for example, you would need about 20 to 30 days where you go to the abattoir for meat safety. You need to go to the municipality for exposure to the municipal health services. You would need to go to a hospital as an environmental health practitioner for a couple of days. You would need to go to a business for occupational health and safety exposure, and many other things. Many other things. You'd even need to go to where illegal dumping hotspots are, for example, or where a landfill site is, where waste is handled. But the whole point of that is that it's not only theoretical. It's not only theoretical. In the same way that as a medical doctor and as a student, you deal with cadavers. I don't know, is it a cadaver? Where you deal with carcasses, human carcasses, and you deal with the actual human organs. It's a practical thing. It's not just theory. It's not just you going through textbooks and actually absorbing the knowledge. You need to be able to carve your way and carve your path throughout the journey. So it's all about building that portfolio of evidence. If you don't have that portfolio of evidence, it doesn't matter how many distinctions you have. It doesn't matter how well your grades are. You need to have met those minimal requirements as prescribed in your portfolio of evidence document. So if you don't have those 100 days, but you have everything as a cum laude, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It means you do not qualify because you do not meet the basic requirements. Then after you've now completed your qualification with your portfolio of evidence, you then have to register in another category. For environmental health, you need to undergo an internship program within public service. So it's called a community service. You become a community service environmental health practitioner. Now, doctors, medical doctors also undergo that process where they actually have to do their community service. They do it at hospitals for a period ranging differently, but most common nowadays is 3 years. It's all about, again, practical exposure, but not only that, it also helps empower government in terms of manpower and providing qualified individuals to assist government, so that the element of a lack of manpower or a strong labor force within that particular sector of the economy, that aspect needs to be covered. So you do community service. So going back to environmental health, you do that for 1 year. After that, you can then register as an independent practitioner. So as an independent environmental health practitioner. For each and every profession, there are various categories that are there. I urge you, if you are within the health sector or in one way or another you encounter contact with a health professional, make yourself acquainted or acquaint yourself with the website of the HPCSA. It has all the information. It's quite vast, it's quite comprehensive, and all your questions will actually be answered there. As an independent practitioner, it doesn't end there. Every single year, you have to pay a certain fee. Without paying that fee, you are not registered. And by not being registered, you can be erased from the registrar or the roster of professionals that are registered. So you have to pay that fee every year. But not only that, you also have to earn CPD points, continuous professional development points. Through these points, it shows that you are advancing yourself within the profession. You are learning, you are keeping abreast with all the information that is available to you as a professional within that particular field. And by doing that, the HPCSA then fulfills its mandate of keeping the public safe, ensuring that people, no matter that 10 years ago you got a cum laude, as was the case for me, you still have to keep abreast. You still need to keep learning. Hence, a lot of us pursue our masters, then we go to our PhDs. We earn those points, those CPD points and those ethical points. There are points also allocated towards ethics. So you actually keeping yourself of high integrity also counts to the HPCSA. So committing fraud, not being registered, or committing any other criminal offense, it means that you are a bogus practitioner. So back to Dr. Matthew. He's a bogus practitioner. And let's expand on that. Being a bogus practitioner actually means that you are committing a criminal offense. So on social media, we may take it lightly as much as we want to, but he's committing a criminal offense. He will be charged for it. Go to the website again. I urge you, you will see that there's a section that speaks to prosecution. They prosecute, and municipalities or government can actually, or the state can actually open a criminal case against a bogus practitioner. As an environmental health practitioner, we have a lot of bogus practitioners. People that go to food establishments, introduce themselves as environmental health practitioners, and then ask for money for certificates that are only issued by a registered practitioner and a person who operates within a particular jurisdiction. So be careful out there. This is just me scraping the surface, guys. There's just so much information around the legitimacy and the legal aspects related to someone being a professional that is recognized and registered with the professional board, right? Now, there are other people that work within the private sector. For example, within environmental health, as is the case now, environmental health practitioners working within the private sector do not have to be registered with the HPCSA. But an update is that the HPCSA is working on that, because in the private sector, it's profits first. But there needs to be that balanced business and governments and legislative bodies and boards have to meet each other halfway for the benefit of the customer, for the benefit of the public. So it's important to not just look at the saga at Dr. Matthews. Already I saw on Twitter that there's another person as well who's also a bogus doctor, who introduces herself as a doctor, who wears scrubs and the like, carrying a stethoscope, all that shebang. So be careful. Don't take this thing lightly. You can actually end up in prison. And there isn't a great escape. You aren't a Michael Scofield. You will end up in prison, and you will stay there for as long as the state, or for as long as justice is actually decided upon you. So be careful and do what you have to do accordingly. Now, the board itself is also responsible for highlighting a number of things. Hence, I encourage you guys to actually go to the website. They encourage you to read their newsletter so that you keep abreast of what's happening within the health sphere, particularly the health sphere that you are interested in, or the health sphere in which you have the most contact with professionals in that space. They give you registration information. They give you updated fees. They give you updated information around practitioners that are legal and illegal. They have information ports around whether a person has been prosecuted against or not, or an update on a particular case. There's just so much to it. There's such a wide spectrum to it. And I would urge you to actually go out there and seek that information. Don't be lured by social media. Social media is just a stupid trap. It's just a stupid trap. So don't be lured by social media lest you actually regret being in that situation. My starters, I love you. I appreciate you. And I will see you on the next one. Cheers, guys.